going to be a question of a little bit of the past, present also, but more in the future. We have seen certain trends of the past. We are seeing certain trends that are happening right now. But what is the direction, if you can say about one thing that you see the future taking shape from a marketing standpoint in healthcare? What would you say that is?
Yeah. What I would add on to that is, what are the good things that happened in the past which you can continue with? And what are the newer innovations which you would like to adopt?
Yes.
Because end of the day, like in society, and in India, though, we are getting away from joint family systems, but there is some merit in joint families.
Sure.
So you have a grandfather or the grandparents, you have the parents, and you also have the children, maybe the grandchildren, right? Now the grandparents have lived their life, and there's some advantage of maturity and experience. The parents come from the next generation, so they may have evolved very differently.
Correct.
And through the generations, there are strengths which can be consolidated together rather than say, no, I don't want to do anything with the past.
It's true.
Now, when it comes to pharma, which is far more conservative than most of the other industries, science and medicine is something which is not gone and will never go away.
Well
Come
said.
what may.
Well said. Well said.
And whether you transit through 100 generations, you are talking of a fundamental and foundational base of medicine, data, knowledge.
Yes.
And that is something which has consistently stayed. And it has only got a little more refined, because today's generation talks only about evidence-based medicine. Maybe the earlier generations also spoke about my practice. This is what I'm comfortable with. But today's generation want that to be substantiated with proof, data, commitment.
Interesting.
So science and medicine is something that has stayed through the years. What has changed and will change and must be adopted very well is a lot of technology has come in. So you have gene-based therapies, you have robotics which have come in, you have big data which has come in, you have artificial intelligence which has come in. Now, whether it is R&D, whether it's manufacturing, or whether it is clinical medicine, today, even because of medical legal reasons, people talk about evidence, data, lab tests, lab reports. Now we know how much has transformed in these areas.
True.
So doctor is not only going with the pulse reading or a stethoscope or manometer reading. He's also looking at a whole lot of evidence which goes into his prescription.
Correct.
You have MRI scans, you have sonographies, you have so many other aids which are available today. Now, unless, the world is evolving, technology is evolving, science is evolving, what use is it if it is not put to practice and benefit of your human beings? So that is where we need to optimize, depending on which industry you are, what works best. Now, when we come to this, another point which comes very clearly to mind is, whether joint families are there or not, our society has multi-generational presence.
Correct.
You and me belong to the Gen X. We actually probably are the oldies today.
Oops.
You are the Gen Y, which are the millennials, and you also have our kids probably are the centennials, right? So the Generation Z guys. Now each generation thinks differently.
Are you aware that
whether you are sorry?
Sorry, are you aware that there is a generation from 2017 onwards which is called Generation
Absolutely.
Alpha?
Absolutely, Alpha. That's the latest one. Why probably one is not counting them on is they're still bachus at the moment. Yeah, and they'll maybe 5 years down the line they'll be prominent there.
Oh yes. Yeah. Oh yes.
Now each generation thinks differently and have their own strengths and weaknesses.
Correct.
Right. Now our doctors are also part of the same generation split.
Right.
But today, when you're dealing with patients or doctors, they also belong to a Gen Z, Gen Y, and a Gen Z X. Correct. And therefore, if as a provider or as a pharma company, you don't evolve yourself to addressing these various generations and their needs, how can you address a doctor who's belonging to a Generation Z or a Y today?
Correct.
If you stick to the policies and approaches of a Gen Z, X. So therefore, you have to synergize your approach as per the need of your customer. In our case, it's the doctor.
True.
patient centricity and now patient servicing and delight is another point that comes to mind. And that's why the bilateral or bipartite approach has changed to a tripartite approach, more so in lifestyle diseases.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to understand your patient differently. You need to understand your customer in pharma who happens to be a doctor very differently. Same with the trade. So unless you evolve with the changing times, unless you technologically and culturally change your mindset, you will not be able to address the needs of today and tomorrow, however successful you have been in the past.
No, I like the point that you've actually mentioned from a bipartite to a tripartite. And I think initially it was so much singular about organization and doctors. The one completely did not take into account the patient, and patient centricity, as you're saying, is not about shifting towards the patient but becoming tripartite. And in fact, what you did mention, I'm just wondering if it becomes a kind of a square of sorts, because you actually have the retail also, which is changing. No, I get it. I think that's interesting to see the trends in the future. While technology will be riding it, but it'll go alongside with multiplicity rather than with singularity. That's interesting.